So, welcome everybody to Thursday tea time at 3:30, unless you're abroad and then it's not. This session is going to take half an hour, and the purpose is to get under the skin of a company adapting to COVID-19. And we're delighted to have Camille Burrows, Group VP of Learning and Development at Discovery Communications. We've also got two solutions partners with relevant solutions for driving engagement and ensuring staff have a voice. And I'm also joined by Ben from Grey Hair Works in case I forget to operate my PC, and Andy as well, who's there for further backup. Andy is my co-founder. Really particularly also want to thank Hayes McIntyre and Lewis Silkin, our sponsors, for their support and genuinely useful content and free advice. And if you need to know anything more on the financial front or legal front, let us know and we'll put you in touch with them. So the purpose of today is really to look at what we are calling revised reality. And revised reality for us represents a huge opportunity to question business models, to embrace new solutions, to test and learn and fail fast and move on if so. And finally, last but not least, to adapt. And in fact, if we listen to what we've heard from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, last week he announced that in just 2 months, Microsoft has seen 2 months, in the last 2 months, Microsoft has seen 2 years worth of digital transformation take place. So really adapting is the key phrase to think about. You've got to make a decision now, whether you want to be the rabbit in the headlights or whether you want to adapt and take control and be in the driving seat. Just a reminder, Grey Hair Works, we're 50 successful old lags. We've been around the block and have the maturity to help with many of the challenges that corporates are facing. And really, you don't want to mess with us, as this picture from our Christmas party shows. In all seriousness though, what we do is we empower you to be more effective. We curate solutions from nimble and proven vendors. We filter out buzzword-laden bullshit, and we understand your challenges, identify solutions, and work with you to implement them. So you're faced with really a very simple choice. Do you want to be the rabbit in the headlights, or are you willing to embrace revised reality? One such organization, which has demonstrated how a large company can be nimble and adapt rapidly in these exceptional times, is Discovery Communications. And Discovery, just to give you a flavor, have over 11 billion in revenues. They operate in 220 countries in over 50 languages, over 10,000 employees, and they've got such famous household brands as the Discovery Channel itself, Food Channel, Eurosport, and they're home of the Olympics. So I'm delighted to welcome Camille Burrows, Group VP of Learning and Development, who is going to have a chat with me and I hope answer a few questions. Camille, obviously the key question to ask is, what's been the impact of this lockdown on Discovery? Have you had to change much?
So just a slight thing on the introduction. We're the home of the Olympics for Europe, so not the US. Half our business, just in terms of context, is international and half our business is US. So when I talk about Discovery, I often skew a little bit to the US because that's where a large part of our business is. So just in terms of the context, my role is global, my team is global, and I work with our leadership team globally. But yes, we're Europe, home of the Olympics. So yeah, I think we have already been on a path of transformation and change for many years. We adapt very quickly, and one of our guiding principles is quick and agile. So being quick and agile to react is one of our key kind of DNA. But also this has created a real opportunity to transform even further. So I think there's 3 areas that I'd say that we have seen an impact. Firstly, in terms of our employees, how they work together. Most of our employees now are working from home. We do have some employees that are in the offices. They're the people who get the shows on the air, and they're critical workers, and we need to protect those. That's why they're on their own and we're all in our homes. Second is how we partner with our clients. So we have affiliate clients like Comcast or Sky, those kind of affiliates. We have ad agencies like Omnicom or WPP, and we have also our direct corporate clients. And this has impacted how we partner with those, and I can talk about that. And thirdly, it's how we create our content. So as you probably know, media companies are not creating new content right now. So it's changed the way we've looked at how we create content, how we work with our talent, and how we engage with our audiences. So those are the three areas I'd say where we've seen the impact, and I'm happy to talk about any of those.
Well, let's start with content then. I mean, what learnings and what have you had to do in what must be the ultimate nightmare for content creation companies, the fact that you can't congregate in studios?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're fortunate in that a lot of our big brands and content revolves around the home. So we have the cooking network, we have DIY, we have home and garden, and we have a lot that is about the home. And so with those shows and formats, we've actually been able to do a lot of innovation. So if you think about Discovery and you look at our shows, the production value is incredibly high. It's one of the things that we really pride ourselves on. And so in the past, we have been a little bit reluctant to downgrade that. And if you think about the typical innovator's dilemma, it's often about bringing new, lower quality sometimes products into the market. And so what we've got at the moment, if you think about the US alone, we have over 50 quarantine, we're calling them quarantine shows or formats or projects on the go right now. So that's where we're filming in people's home or they're filming in their own home. And we're taking this as an opportunity to experiment and do things that we probably wouldn't have done before because of the quality issue. And a lot of our talent love it. So I was on a call with one of our chefs last week, Bobby Flay. He's a very famous chef and restaurateur in the US, and he'd been talking to Discovery for a while now about wanting to do shows in his home. And now he's getting the chance and he's loving it. And our audience are loving it because it's very authentic. Chip and Joanna, they have a show in the US. They're very big in terms of DIY. Our DIY channel has gone from 50 million homes to 80 million homes just in the last week or so, because we're now filming in their home and people want to hear and see where they live and they want to get an insight into their world. So we're doing a lot around kind of short form. We're looking at our back catalogue. Discovery, we own all our content, which is amazing. And we always say it's brilliant because we have this back catalogue. We don't always use it though. So this is a real opportunity to look at how we use some of that in these times as well. So I would say on a content side, we've really used it as an opportunity to experiment and test new things. Not all of those 50 projects are going to, last or come to fruition, but we will learn a lot. And I'm sure it will inform our content going forward. And interestingly, a couple of articles have been out. One of them I just wrote a couple of notes earlier. Said Discovery stars make shows while stuck at home. Fresh, fast content offers comfort to viewers. So I think we're getting recognised as well in the media that we are providing a lot of comfort for people whilst they're in their homes. So that's what I'd say in terms of content.
That's great to hear. And you also mentioned partnering with clients. What learnings are you getting from that?
Yeah, so I was interviewing one of the senior execs at Omnicom last week. We ran a big town hall meeting, and I was asked to host that. It was around ad sales, and she said that in this crisis, you realise who your partners are, and who they are, and who they are not, and who is in this with you. And I think that is really telling in terms of this is an important time to cement those partnerships, to work together, to find out what they need, understand what we need, and to really collaborate. And what I've seen talking to our commercial teams across the world is that this is a real opportunity to open things up. Whereas before there might be things that Discovery were a little bit more conservative about negotiating on, or our clients were a bit more conservative about negotiating on, is creating more opportunity to do things that we've always wanted to do, or they've always wanted to do, and accelerate that process. So we're seeing a lot of transformation and change and acceleration of some of the things that we want to do with our partners, and they have too. And so it's just created a bit more openness for us both. And one thing you might have seen last week was an announcement of a deal we did with Amazon. So we have a new food network kitchen app, and what we've done is, through that deal, is Amazon are now offering that app free to all of its tablet customers in the US, and that's tens and tens of millions of subscribers. So they're getting that free for a year. And I think deals like that are going to keep coming, because this is the opportunity, I think, where people are really open for discussion.
Camille, Ben here. It sounds all really positive, which is great, because I think that's absolutely where we should be looking at it. But are there any specific challenges that you're finding difficult, or that you've had to adapt to, that have been particularly spiky, should we say?
In terms of partnerships or content, or just generally?
Generally, considering the situation.
I think the main concern for us as an organisation was the third one, actually, our employees. Was our first concern was making sure everyone is safe. We actually decided to work remote before a lot of the countries did, because we're very global. We really were looking at, we have offices in China, we have offices in Singapore, and we were seeing what was happening in those markets, and we decided to actually close the offices other than for critical workers very quickly, in order to protect those, to protect their safety, business continuity. And our main concern has initially been that. Obviously, business continuity and supporting our clients has been the second thing. But I think because we are global, we already had a lot of the tools we've had Zoom for a long time. We went to agile working. We started that kind of a couple of years ago. Nearly all our offices are agile in the way they work. One area I think we've lagged behind a little bit on the agile is the flexible working, which is the kind of more working from home. Some offices do it, some offices don't. This has definitely accelerated that, and it's definitely shown us we can be hugely productive. I was on a call with some of our senior digital leaders recently. They came from Amazon, and they were blown away by the productivity they've seen over the last couple of months. And they said, actually, when we started this lockdown, productivity and commitment skyrocketed even further. So, for example, we have a global digital platform we're developing, and we have 150 engineers working in 150 offices right now. So that's a challenge, because these engineers are used to daily stand-up meetings. They make decisions, they whiteboard everything, and suddenly they're all working from home. And they've done a fantastic job. We even launched a new digital product in India on the eve of the lockdown in India, and within the first few weeks we had 75,000 subscribers. So yes, amazing. We've had challenges, but we've collaborated and we've worked really hard to overcome them. And to be honest, Discovery is the type of business that thrive a bit on a challenge. So I think that the biggest challenge as well with our employees is some of their personal circumstances. If they're working from home and they live alone, or when those that have young children, and Ben, you'll know how this is, it's challenging. And we've been very upfront at the beginning and said, look, we don't expect everyone to be 100% productive all the time. We know people have got some challenges that they're facing, and we will work together. My team, I have a team spread all over the world, and we've had to shift things around in order to accommodate certain working styles and schedules. We've said you don't have to work typical hours if you need to spend time with the kids during the day, and you put off some of the work till later. You work as you need to work. And because we trust our employees, because we give them flexibility, because we give them the support, we get the productivity back. That's our experience.
Well, on the back of that, Camille, and thank you very much. I would love to bring in Raj at this point. Raj runs InChorus, and from what you're saying, the idea of support, etc., but remote working, I suspect, opens up many more opportunities for companies to embrace a broader approach to, in this case, diversity and inclusion. So maybe, Raj, could we ask you to share some of your thoughts?
Hi, Camille. Hi, Alex. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of InChorus, which is a culture and inclusion analytics platform. So following on from what Camille was saying, actually, so as we've seen during this pandemic and lockdown, companies are increasingly focusing on how their workforce is coping. Actually, surprisingly so. So during this period, and as we come out of the lockdown, there'll be an increased focus on how companies actually manage their workforce culture. We find that currently it's hard for companies to do this properly because they don't have the right data. They might currently be gathering engagement survey data at one end, which is fairly static, sentiment-driven information, or at the other extreme, they might be capturing information from whistleblowing services or exit interviews, but neither is quite fit for purpose. And so this is what InChorus does, is capturing the right kinds of data, which is those everyday behaviors, what happens negatively or positively that affects how employees feel about their lived experience of work and as it happens. And so what this enables us to do is create large aggregated and anonymized data sets, which can then be used to more proactively manage diversity, inclusion, and culture initiatives. You know, they might be training or new tools that come into place, or simply just having a conversation with line managers in a certain function where an issue has arisen. And perhaps most uniquely, we're then able to, because we have these data sets, to test the performance of those solutions that have been put in place. We're talking about the pandemic, but kind of just more broadly, the risks and rewards of mismanaging your culture are more amplified than ever before. There have been great reports by McKinsey and PwC and BCG about the link between financial performance and innovation revenues, for example, between greater gender and ethnic diversity within your organizations. And we've seen some absolute catastrophes in terms of companies that have mismanaged this. So a couple of examples would be Wynn Resorts, where they were hit by a scandal that cost them $3.5 billion. And there was a situation at Guess Jeans where one tweet alone hit the company to the tune of 18% of their net worth. We're finding that now is a great time just because of the situation that we will find ourselves in, but there's also legislation coming in, we hope fairly imminently, that will change the onus for companies from not only dealing with the situations as they arise, but taking a far more preventative approach to these types of issues. We work across numerous industries, but like take an industry by industry approach, whereby allowing companies to not only focus on their own culture, but be able to benchmark. And it was, I think it's down testament to that why Revolut wished to work with us, which is taking what was perceived as a very fluffy subject to one which was much more data-driven and measurable. I think there might be some questions, Alex.
Raj, thanks very much.
I've got a question, if I can. Could you give us some examples of the types of data you're talking about?
Sure, Camille. So the origins of our work kind of go back, not that we were working on it, but go back to the civil rights movement in the US. So there's a lot of studies about overt and covert incidents or types of behavior. So if someone yells at you and is screaming at you about something derogatory, very easy for you to lay the blame on them. What we're focusing on are much more micro behaviors, where there's this kind of gray area where people take much more of an emotional toll from those kinds of behaviors. So in most companies, and probably at Discovery too, you'll see initiatives around gender at work. So you'll have seen reporting, which is now mandatory, around gender pay gaps, but the manifestation of those are far slighter. So examples might be sexist banter in the office that might not be appropriate, or even more slighter, being a female executive in a team in a meeting with all males, where it's a feeling, but you feel like you're not getting as much bandwidth at that table. So we allow individuals to anonymously log those kinds of incidents, to flag to HR and to senior leadership that this is prevalent or not so prevalent within a specific company culture.
Thank you. That's really useful. It's kind of like gives you a sense of how people are feeling versus just the hard data or say diversity data, which is, I think, an interesting angle, because I don't know if many surveys and things do that. They're quite explicit. It's nice to get a general feeling of how people feel about the culture.
We find ourselves at this funny juxtaposition between quant and qualitative data. We're taking the experience, but allowing that to be quantified. So if you have a large spike in incidents of, I don't know, let's say sexist banter in your EMEA sales team, you're taking an experience, but if it's happening, it's a subjective experience, but if it's happening enough, you know that it's probably happening and it needs dealing with, versus taking a much more thematic approach, is what we find many companies currently taking, because they don't have the data to focus in on the actual problems within their own culture.
Perfect, great. Well, maybe now is the time to bring in Jan, because I'm very interested to understand how we've heard what the right thing to do is, but Jan runs a company called ATOBI, and they're all about creating the tools to actually allow you to engage with staff. So Jan, do you want to take us through what you've got?
Sure. Thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jan Andersen. I'm the founder of ATOBI. ATOBI is a employee communication and engagement platform that is basically developed to handle the new revised reality we live in. It's being used by banks, pharmacies, and retailers. And an example from the UK where you're based could be Boots, that is currently using ATOBI. And when we're looking at our clients and how they're using ATOBI to deal with the, let's say, the new challenges, we're seeing 5 trends in what they're doing. One, of course, is also what Camille talked about first, taking care of the workforce. Another one that is emerging right now is that they are preparing the workforce for different ways of working, not just during the, let's say, lockdowns and immediately afterwards, but also in the longer term. We see a blurring of the line between work and private life, and that actually also leads to the need to humanize communication. We see much more informal communication, humor being used, interaction, and a big emphasis on authenticity. And I think I picked up on something Camille said about that you're actually innovating through authenticity. And I find that very, very interesting. One of the companies that is doing this really well is the Spanish shoe brand Camper. They engaged more than 600 remote employees just a week after reaching out to us. They're using ATOBI to do daily check-ins to measure the physical and mental well-being of their employees. They're also using to share good news from the company, also updates on reopening of societies and positive news in general across society. And then, of course, build a community and connect employees to each other in the company. Last but not least, a very important initiative they're taking is using this situation to upskill employees, not just to give them better competencies, but to give them higher self-esteem, which is highly needed in this period. So an example of, let's say, what we call an old reality approach is on the left, a corporate newsletter, very lengthy, boring. And on the right, we have what we call revised reality approach with a short, daily, frequent, and engaging poll sent out to every employee where they can actually see what is the state of the nation. That is completely transparent, and it, the humor of it gives them the possibility of expressing themselves in a way that feels authentic. So I think one of the conclusions that we are drawing here, that I say almost all companies in all industries need a flexible engagement and communication platform that basically invite employees to engage actively with each other and the company in different ways and being authentic. So that's basically also why we fit and why we built ATOBI, and it fits quite well to the challenges we're facing right now. Thanks.
Can I ask a couple of questions? I think they'll be short ones. One is why daily? Why not, weekly or twice a week? And then the second is how much is it social? So people communicating different communities with each other, or is it mostly kind of one way?
Daily, because they wanted to get momentum going and get a feeling of what was happening. And they also found that in the beginning, there were fewer people answering, and then it increased. And then their plan is actually to, let's say, prolong the time periods. But for now, they need a daily feeling of what's going on. Also, the things are changing so fast that they use it to prompt people to check in and find out what's going on. So it is as much a nudging tool as it is a measurement tool. So the second question is on the community and how much content is being created by users. Was that the question?
Yes, yeah.
A lot. They're experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing, though it's a completely different company and context and challenging. They're seeing a huge spike in user-generated content, and we are in talks with them actually about how they can shift this, turn it around going forward. Instead of thinking about this corporate developed learning programs and so on, how can they engage their 4,000 employees in generating this content for continuous learning and challenging each other, because it's just so much more interesting for them. Just the same way you would rather want to see a chef making a dinner from his own home, you'd rather see and learn from a colleague than from some sort of a corporate learning program.
That's great, thank you.
Fantastic. Great. Well, we've just about managed to stay on time. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who's attended today. Most importantly, our keynote, Camille. Thank you so much for your insights. She has shown how even a very large company, particularly a communications one, is not only adept at communications, but is able to adapt and change at speed in ways which were unthinkable pre-COVID. The stat I liked the most was how the DIY channel has gone from 50 million to 80 million homes in less than a couple of months. We then heard from InChorus about why diversity and inclusion should be a central part of your business culture, how it makes you more money, and more importantly, how it can save you a fortune. And as it's about to be law, it really needs to be embraced. And then finally from ATOBI, who talked about the ability to engage with your staff, why it's so important, why it needs to be on a device of their choice, which is typically mobile, in a way which is natural to them, and how it reaps benefits for the companies. And even more importantly, how they managed to turn this project around in only a week, thanks to both a willing supplier and a willing customer. The good news for participants on this show is that both solutions are also available free to our friends for a period of time. Just let us know, we will introduce you. There is a secret code word which I'm only sharing with you. That code word is rabbit. If you don't use the code word rabbit, you don't get the special deal, so make sure you do use it. And other than that, once again, thank you to everyone. Our next event is in 2 weeks' time. Again, 3:30 on the Thursday the 21st of May. We've got the Global Head of Innovation at Hachette Livre, which is the third largest consumer publisher in the world, plus 2 solutions partners. One who'll be talking about how to create products driven by consumer insight, and the second, how to actually improve engagement rates and visual assets and drive sales. If you want to speak to us, please just use bingo@greyhairworks. And finally, big thank you to Lewis Silkin and Hayes McIntyre. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was useful. Please get in touch if you want to learn more. Otherwise, thank you very much and catch you next time. All the best. Bye.